Okay, part three. Now we're getting into thinking with the hips. Now there's a couple of terms that I'm going to go over before we start getting into this particular part of it. First one that we're going to look at is hip abduction, and that is simply if my legs here are at my side and this leg goes away from the body laterally. We call that abduction. The aliens have come and they have abducted my leg and it has gone away from my body. The opposite of this is adduction, leg coming towards the body. We're not going to use that term so much. What we are going to use a lot of is internal versus external rotation. And now that is actually exactly what it sounds like. Our hips are a socket surrounded by muscle, and the ends of our femurs rotate inside of this socket. So now if we pick up our leg and turning from the hip, if this leg kind of comes in like so, going towards and perhaps crossing our center line, that is external rotation. If we go the other way, where our feet are going away from our center line, that is internal rotation. External, internal. Now as we sort of straighten out and bring our leg down, then we get, man, this is an annoying light. I apologize for the really crappy lighting in here. I was planning on doing this during the daytime, but that doesn't seem to have happened. But on the floor, however, there we go. Same concept. Hip rotates out. That is external rotation. Go the other way. That is internal rotation. Now, one thing we must be conscious of here, and something that I'm going to start harping on you about right away, is I just realized I have gray socks on a gray mat. You cannot see what my feet are doing. Okay. Excuse me, everybody. Yeah. Pause. Okay. And that is that if, I'm not sure how well you can see this, if knees and toes must be pointing in the same direction. If I let my hips just sort of relax, now my knees are pointing on this line and my toes are pointing in this line. This is bad. If you are sitting like this, you can even feel some kind of tension right here in the knee. Or if it goes the other way, where my toes are pointing this way, my knees are pointing this way, that is also bad. For one or both joints. The ankle can usually take a little more of it because it's such a complex joint. But the knee really only moves this way. Any sideways pressure on this is bad. I think healing time for an ACL tear is 6 months to a year. So again, when I use the cue toes, check them, because they might be pointed in, they might be out. It's also possible the entire leg is just internally rotated. But when I say toes, that means check your toes, make sure they're in line with your knees, and also make sure they're pointing out in a direction that they should be pointing. Okay. So rotation from a neutral stance. If I stand here, feet equidistant from this center line. And I sort of come up onto my toes and take my knees and point them towards that center line. Now I have internally rotated both of my hips. If I do the same thing, come up onto those toes, and again, we are moving from the hips. Every single one of these that you do, you should feel tension. In the case of the external rotation, there is a muscle right here, right above the hip joint. That is where you should feel tension here. If you are rotating internally, you are going to feel that more kind of back here. The rotation happens from the hips. I'm going to keep saying this. Think with the hips. Because if you think with the hips, with a little bit of training, the feet will follow. If you think with the hips, the shoulders will follow. If you think with your hips, your arms will always go where they need to be. This right here is what you need to think with. Okay, right. The first example of this that we looked at in class was the twist, in which case one side is rotating internally, the other side is rotating externally. Again, come up onto the toes just ever so slightly. And the thing to pay attention to is that the hips don't deviate from that center line. The hips remain pointing this way. Toes. Make sure your knees and your toes are pointing the same way. Up from there, and twist, twist. Just get used to this motion. If you want, you can even do some of this on your heels. And you notice you can sort of move around by doing that. Always rotate from the hips. Your hips are really strong. Variant of this, the weird shuffle dance that you keep seeing people doing on boardwalks on sunny days and in front of graffiti or whatever, or at least the really simple version of it. Externally rotate both legs, and again up on the toes, and rotate both internally, and then rotate both externally. Right? Get used to that. That's comfortable. Now, the same way we were able to move across the floor doing the twist, we can do it with that too. And we do this this is a good exercise for just coordinating all of your parts. It's tricky, and if you can get good at it, you'll be just a little bit more coordinated. So, from external rotation, I'm going to raise this toe and raise this heel, and I'm going to rotate internally. Now, I'm going to raise this heel and raise this toe, and rotate externally. See, it's tricky. Do that too. And in class we did this, but with playing tag with each other. Okay, last thing on internal and external rotation, at least before we get into the actual part where you do a sword thing, is rotate both hips internally and walk. Penguin walk. We also played tag like this. backwards, go forward, go to the side. And you notice that in order to move while in this penguin stance, you have to use your hips. Fun thing about animal walks is that they always look stupid. Everybody looks stupid when they do it, and therefore they're lots of fun. Same thing, toes pointed out. And walk around. Go directly to the side. Go backwards. This especially will strengthen the muscles in charge of this. And if you if you don't like doing the penguin walk, I'm terribly sorry, but we are going to be doing a lot of that. And let's see. Great. So that is, it's been about 10 minutes. We're going to get into the next video.